Welcome to another deep dive, and today we're really tackling a tough one.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be looking at the book of Habakkuk.
Lots of questions there.
So many questions.
Yeah.
This little book, it's just 3 chapters long,
Right.
but wow, it is packed.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at a lot of different sources today.
Uh-huh.
We've got theological commentaries, study guides, historical analysis, you name it, we got it.
All focused on this prophet, right?
Yes.
Wrestling with some pretty heavy stuff.
Oh, yeah, and that's going to be our guiding question today.
Okay.
How can a just God
Mm-hmm.
use a seemingly more wicked nation to punish his own people?
Right, right. And that's something that I think a lot of people can relate to today, right?
For sure.
I mean, even looking around at the world today, you see suffering, you see injustice, you see things happening, and you think, well, where's God in all this?
Exactly. And to really kind of get in Habakkuk's head here, we need to understand his world, right? So we're talking roughly 600 BCE.
Okay.
The kingdom of Judah, things are not looking good.
No.
There's corruption,
Hmm.
social injustice. There's this looming threat of Babylon, just
This rising superpower.
a superpower. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And, it's easy to gloss over those historical details, but when you really look at what our sources are saying, they describe life under King Jehoiakim as, there's palace intrigue,
Yeah.
crushing taxes.
Forced labor.
It was a tough time to be alive.
Yeah, not a good scene.
No.
And that really sets the stage for Habakkuk's outcry.
It does.
And, we meet him, it seems like he's a temple musician, a man who is deeply rooted in his faith.
Yeah.
But he's shaken,
Oh, absolutely.
And his first prayer, it's not polite.
No.
It's raw. He's really questioning God's inaction
Yeah.
in the face of all this evil.
Mm-hmm. In fact, one of our sources here even compares Habakkuk's prayer to Psalm 3.
A song of lament, like he's crying out, like, why are you making me see these terrible things?
Yeah.
Why are you just standing by while everything's falling apart?
Yeah, why do you just seem to be watching while all this destruction is happening?
Yeah,
It's a good question.
it is.
And he even says, one of the things he says is, I feel trapped like a fish in a net, and you're holding the net.
Yeah, that's such a powerful image, right?
It is.
It just conveys that sense of helplessness,
Yeah.
confusion, just, what's going on here?
And I think it's a good question for all of us to consider, right?
Absolutely.
Like, how would you react if you were Habakkuk,
Right. If you were in his sandals, what would you do?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah,
And what's interesting is God does answer him,
he does.
but it's not a very comforting answer.
No, it's not.
He basically says, look, I am going to act,
Mhm.
but I'm going to use the Babylonians as my instrument.
That's right. That rising superpower that we talked about.
Yeah. Yeah, to punish Judah.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting. A lot of our sources use this word whip.
Yeah.
Like, they're emphasizing the disciplinary nature of this.
Right. It's not, hey, things are going to get better.
Yeah.
It's buckle up.
Yeah.
It's about to get worse.
Things are about to get a lot worse.
Yeah.
And so that's where Habakkuk really starts to struggle.
He does.
He's like, wait a minute. These Babylonians are brutal.
They are.
They're known for their violence and their cruelty. How can you, as a just God,
right.
use them to punish Judah?
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, okay, so you're going to use a bigger bully to take care of a smaller bully.
Yeah. How does that work?
How does that make any sense?
Right. It just doesn't seem fair.
And that really becomes the crux of this whole book.
It does.
This tension between how we understand justice and how God might be working in the world.
Yeah. And that's a tension that I think a lot of us experience,
For sure.
when we look around at the world and we see things that just don't seem right.
Yeah, like where is God in all this?
And so Habakkuk, faced with this very unsettling answer from God,
Yeah,
he decides, you know what?
I need more answers.
I'm going to take my questions straight to the source.
Straight to the top.
So he climbs a high place.
And some of our sources are saying this might be symbolic.
Oh, I think it definitely is.
Like he's trying to get to a higher perspective.
Right, above all the noise.
Above all the chaos.
Of the world.
Yeah.
And just seeking that divine guidance.
He wants God to explain this to him.
Yeah, to make sense of this confusing situation.
Yeah.
And you know what? God does respond.
He does. He sure does.
He does. And he tells Habakkuk to write his message on a public display for everyone to see.
And I think it's interesting what this message actually says.
It is.
It contains 5 woes
Okay.
against Babylon.
Against the very nation that God is using as his instrument of punishment.
Right. It's like, what?
Exactly.
I don't get it.
It's like he's saying, yes, I'm using Babylon right now, but their wickedness will not go unpunished.
Oh, so there's this concept of cyclical justice. Okay.
Exactly. The Babylonians, they might seem invincible at this moment,
Right.
but their actions have consequences,
Okay.
and those consequences are coming.
So God is ultimately just,
Absolutely.
it's just going to take a little while.
That's right.
Okay, I can see that.
But here's where it gets even more interesting,
Okay.
because in the middle of these woes, these pronouncements of doom against Babylon,
Uh-huh.
God also offers a message of hope.
Okay.
He says, the righteous shall live by his faith.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So right in the middle of all this talk of punishment and downfall, there's this glimmer of light.
Yeah, but what does that mean?
Yeah, what does it mean to live by faith?
I mean, is it just believing? Is there more to it?
Yeah, and that's where one of the sources really kind of digs in a little deeper
Okay.
and says that faith here isn't passive acceptance.
Mhm.
It's active trust. It's a commitment to living righteously, even when the world seems to be falling apart.
So it's not saying, okay, God, whatever you say. It's more like, I trust you,
That's right.
and I'm going to live by my values no matter what.
Yeah, even if I don't understand what's going on.
That takes courage.
It does, and it's a challenge to us, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what does it mean for us to live by faith today?
In our own lives.
Especially when we're faced with difficult situations.
Yeah, it's a big question.
It is.
So Habakkuk, he's got this message, doom and gloom, but also hope.
Right.
What does he do? He bursts into song.
He does.
Shikanad. Now, some scholars describe this as a song of death.
Oh, interesting.
But it's not just, a sad, mournful song.
Okay.
It acknowledges the devastation, but it also expresses this awe at God's power over nature.
Oh, wow.
And it's interesting because one source describes this song as epic.
Really?
Like a soundtrack for the end of the world.
And remember how he said that he included instructions for stringed instruments?
Yeah.
I mean, he wanted this message to be felt, not just heard.
It speaks to the power of art, doesn't it?
It does,
Yeah.
to express emotions and truths
Yeah.
that sometimes words just can't capture.
Yeah. Wow.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
Not everyone is buying Habakkuk's message.
Oh, that's
You
right.
got these official prophets.
Yeah, the palace prophets.
Right, in the palace.
Who are preaching a very different message.
Totally different tune.
Yeah, they're saying God would never abandon Judah.
Right, he's going to protect his chosen people.
He always has. He always will.
Yeah, classic, like we've always done it this way, it'll always be this way.
Yeah.
But this tension is so important
Yeah, I think so too.
because it highlights this challenge of the prophetic voice.
Throughout history,
People who dare to disrupt
the status quo.
with these uncomfortable truths.
Yeah.
Those are the people who make us think.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, what happens when our deeply held beliefs are challenged?
Yeah.
Like, how do we reconcile faith with what we see happening around us?
Yeah, it's a question that I think we're still grappling with today.
For sure.
And it's a question that leads us directly into the next part of Habakkuk's story.
All right, so stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back to dig into the rest of Habakkuk.
It's almost like we're watching this clash of worldviews.
Yeah.
You got Habakkuk on the one side.
Warning everyone.
Right, warning about God's judgment.
And then the palace prophets went, it's fine.
It's all good, don't worry about it.
God's got this.
Yeah.
It just makes you wonder if maybe those palace prophets
Were
were a little more concerned with,
keeping their jobs.
yeah, maybe then
They're
actually.
facing the truth.
Yeah, speaking of facing the truth,
Yeah.
what actually happened?
Yeah.
Did those prophets get their,
Well, history tells us that the Babylonians did, in fact, conquer Judah.
And our sources describe the destruction of Jerusalem and the exile of the Jewish people.
Oh, it was bad.
I mean, it was horrific.
Yeah.
It was a really, really dark chapter.
Yeah, it's a good reminder
It is.
that just because you believe something really strongly
Right.
doesn't necessarily make it true.
Absolutely.
You got to be willing to face those hard truths,
Yeah.
to look at the evidence.
And then it makes you think,
It does.
where are we maybe avoiding uncomfortable truths in our own lives?
That's a good question for all of us to consider.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is how Habakkuk responds to all of this.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't destroy him, right?
No, he doesn't shy away
It keeps going.
from the hard questions.
Yeah.
In fact, he actually argues with God.
Oh, really? He gets into it with God.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He acknowledges that God is using the Babylonians as his instrument, but he's also like, but look at what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're brutal.
Yeah.
How does this fit into your plan?
It's like he's bringing a case.
He is.
It's before the highest court.
Like a lawyer
Yeah.
pleading his case
Yeah.
before the ultimate judge.
Wow. And so what happens? Does God strike him down?
No.
Okay.
No, and I think that's really significant
Yeah, I think so too.
because it suggests that God doesn't expect blind obedience.
Right.
He welcomes our questions.
Yeah.
He welcomes honest inquiry.
Even if it's a little,
Even if it's filled with doubt
yeah,
and frustration,
he can handle it.
he can handle it.
Yeah, it's not going to scare him away.
And I think that's something we need to remember,
I think so too.
in our own spiritual journeys.
Mm-hmm.
Do we feel free
To question.
to question, to wrestle, to
Yeah.
doubt? I mean, these are all part of the process.
Yeah, and it's not always about having the right answers.
No, it's about the journey.
Yeah.
It's about seeking
Yeah.
and asking
So it was really his questioning that led him to this.
to a deeper understanding.
Deeper understanding. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it leads him to this final song, the Shijino.
The Song of Death, right?
Right, but remember, it's not just a song of death.
Okay.
There's this incredible sense of awe and wonder at God's power.
Mm-hmm.
And, the imagery is just, it's incredible.
And the stringed instruments, right?
Oh, yeah. Don't forget the string instruments.
He wants this to be like an experience.
Yeah, it's like a soundtrack for the end of the world.
Wow.
And in the middle of all this powerful imagery,
Mm-hmm.
he affirms his faith.
Oh.
He says, "Though the fig tree should not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, the produce of the olive fail, and the fields yield no food, the flock be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls."
That's a lot of bad stuff.
Yeah, he's painting this picture of complete desolation.
Yeah.
Like everything is gone.
Yeah.
And then he says, "Yet I will rejoice in the Lord."
Wow. So even in all that.
Even in the midst of all that,
Yeah.
he's still clinging to his faith. He's saying, my joy doesn't come from my circumstances.
Mhm.
It comes from my relationship with God.
That's powerful.
It is.
And, it makes you think about
Yeah,
where do we find our joy?
that's right.
What are those things that we cling to
Yeah.
that we think we can't live without?
And what happens when those things are taken away?
Yeah, those are tough questions.
They are.
But it's good to think about.
It is. And I think that's one of the things that Habakkuk really forces us to confront.
Yeah.
It's not about having all the answers. It's
Yeah.
about trusting God.
Even when we don't understand.
Exactly.
So for someone listening today
Yeah.
who might be wrestling
Right.
with these big questions,
Yeah.
what can they learn from Habakkuk?
I think Habakkuk gives us permission to question,
Yeah.
to doubt,
Yeah.
even to argue with God.
And it's okay.
It's okay. It's not a betrayal of faith.
Okay.
That's a pathway
It's deeper understanding.
to a deeper, more authentic relationship
Okay, I like that.
with God.
So it's not about just being quiet
No.
and,
And accepting everything.
Yeah.
It's about engaging
Yeah.
in the conversation.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think Habakkuk also highlights
Yeah.
the importance of living by our values,
Hmm.
even when the world around us seems chaotic.
Yeah, even when it's falling apart.
Even when it's falling apart.
Yeah.
It's about standing up for what we believe in,
Even when it's hard.
especially when it's hard.
Yeah, I like that.
And I think ultimately Habakkuk's story offers a message of hope.
Oh, okay.
It reminds us that even in the face of suffering
Yeah.
and uncertainty,
Mm-hmm.
we can find joy in our faith.
Oh,
We can trust in God's plan,
yeah.
and we can continue to strive
To make the world a better place.
to make the world a better place.
That's a good message.
It is. It's a message that's resonated with people for centuries.
Yeah, it stood the test of time.
It has.
Yeah.
And it continues to offer comfort and encouragement today.
Yeah, I think so too. It's really something else, right?
It is.
This whole Hop-
sort of journey.
Habakkuk's journey.
Yeah.
It's just not afraid to just
Be real with God.
yeah, to just be real.
Yeah.
And I love that,
Yeah. And you know what? I think it not only gives us permission to question,
Mm.
but it also reveals something about God.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Like he's not this distant,
Right.
unapproached.
You can't talk to him. He's too holy.
Yeah, like don't bother me with your problems.
Yeah.
But Habakkuk shows us that God is actually,
He wants to hear.
he wants to hear it.
He's not threatened by our doubts.
Okay, so that's really important to remember.
It is.
It's like God can handle it.
He can handle it.
He can take it.
It's
yeah,
not going to,
he's big enough
yeah.
to handle our questions,
Yeah.
our doubts, our frustrations.
Yeah.
And this brings us back to you, right?
Okay.
The listener, what are those things that you see in the world today
Mhm.
that just don't seem to make sense?
Yeah.
Where's the justice in that?
Yeah, the suffering.
The suffering. How does that,
Yeah.
where do you see systems that just perpetuate these things?
Yeah.
And I think Habakkuk is saying, don't just sit there.
Yeah, don't just accept it.
Wrestle with it.
Yeah.
Grapple with it. Try to understand.
Try to make sense of it.
Try to make sense of it.
Yeah.
And remember, he didn't get a simple answer from God.
No, it was a process.
It was a process. It was a journey.
Yeah.
He got a deeper revelation of God's character,
Okay.
of his commitment to justice,
Even if it doesn't make sense right away.
even if it doesn't look the way we expect it to.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I think, going back to what you said earlier, it's
Yeah.
not about having all the answers. It's about trusting
Trusting that he knows.
that he knows that he's got it,
Yeah.
even when we don't.
Yeah. And I think that's what allows us to do something.
Exactly.
To not just sit back.
It empowers us to act,
To act.
to
actually
live righteously,
to work for justice
Yeah.
in the world,
even when it's hard.
even when it feels impossible.
Yeah, and Habakkuk reminds us
He does.
we're not the first ones
No.
to go through this.
There's a long line of people
Yeah.
who have wrestled with these same questions.
It's a very human thing.
It is.
Yeah, to wonder where God is.
And, I think
Yeah.
what's so beautiful about the book
Mm-hmm.
is it doesn't end with all the answers tied up neatly.
No, it doesn't.
It ends with a song.
Yeah.
A song that acknowledges the pain,
It's a struggle.
the struggle,
Mhm.
but also affirms that faith.
Yeah, that hope.
Yeah, that enduring hope.
Yeah.
So it's like he's saying, the story's not over.
Yeah.
This isn't the end.
It's gonna be okay.
We can find hope.
Yeah.
We can trust God.
Yeah.
We can choose to live by faith.
Even when we don't have all the answers. Even when we don't see the whole picture.
Yeah.
And I hope that this deep dive
Yeah.
has given you some things to think about
Yeah, me too.
and encouraged you to keep exploring.
Keep asking questions.
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask the hard questions.
To wrestle with your faith.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because in that wrestling,
Yeah.
we often find
Deeper understanding.
deeper understanding and a deeper relationship with God.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us today on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. And we hope you'll continue to join us.
As we explore more of these big questions.
More deep dives.
Deep dives.
Coming soon.